A major constitutional clash erupted in Washington today as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth declared the Trump administration will not seek congressional approval for potential military action against Iran, despite a critical deadline passing. This defiant stance is reigniting fierce debates about presidential war powers and pushing the limits of executive authority. On February 17, the 60-day deadline under the War Powers Resolution officially expired. That clock started ticking when American forces launched strikes against Iranian military targets in late December following escalating tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. Under the 1973 War Powers Act, presidents must obtain congressional authorization within 60 days of committing forces to hostilities or withdraw them. But Secretary Hegseth isn't backing down. In a press conference this morning, he made a stunning argument that a temporary ceasefire agreement reached with Iran on January 28 effectively pauses or even stops that constitutional countdown. The 60-day clock pauses, or stops, Hegseth stated flatly, claiming that because active hostilities have ceased under the ceasefire terms, the administration faces no legal requirement to seek a war authorization vote. This interpretation flies in the face of how the War Powers Resolution has traditionally been understood. The law was passed over President Nixon's veto specifically to prevent presidents from engaging in prolonged military conflicts without congressional consent. It was born from the trauma of Vietnam, where presidents expanded American involvement for years without a formal declaration of war. Constitutional scholars are already calling Hegseth's ceasefire loophole argument legally dubious at best. The War Powers Act doesn't include language about pausing the clock during temporary ceasefires. Its purpose is clear: ensure democratic oversight when American forces are deployed in harm's way. The December strikes targeted Iranian Revolutionary Guard facilities and were described by Pentagon officials at the time as retaliation for attacks on U.S. Navy vessels. Those operations left at least 47 Iranian military personnel dead and destroyed significant infrastructure. The ceasefire that followed is fragile. Intelligence reports suggest Iran continues military preparations, and American forces remain at elevated alert levels across the Middle East. Congressional reaction has been swift and divided along predictable lines. Republican leaders are largely backing the administration, with Senate Armed Services Committee members arguing the president has inherent authority to defend American interests. But Democrats are furious. House Speaker Hakeem Jeffries called the administration's position a dangerous power grab that threatens constitutional balance. Senator Tim Kaine, a longtime advocate for congressional war powers, announced his drafting a resolution to force a vote on Iran authorization. No president gets to simply pause the Constitution because it's inconvenient, Kaine said. Legal experts warn this sets a troubling precedent. If accepted, Hegseth's interpretation would allow any president to launch military operations, negotiate brief ceasefires, and effectively sidestep congressional oversight indefinitely. The ceasefire itself remains tenuous. It includes no long-term diplomatic framework, and both sides maintain their military postures. Satellite imagery shows Iranian forces have not stood down from elevated readiness levels. American carrier groups remain positioned in the region. Watch for congressional Democrats to force floor votes challenging this interpretation. Kaine's resolution could come as early as next week. Also monitor the ceasefire itself. Any breakdown in the coming days would intensify pressure on the administration to finally seek authorization or face a full-blown constitutional crisis. This confrontation goes far beyond Iran. It's about whether presidents can wage war indefinitely through legal maneuvering, or whether Congress retains its constitutional role as a check on executive military power. Stay informed. Stay ahead. This is Viral News Hourly.